So, I want to write a book. Imagine it. Creating a book, sharing my ideas with the world. Look, I'm a creative person. I have ideas, but I don't know where to start.
One thing that I like to do is I take a small notebook or like things that you could just tear off the sheet and then write on the next one. And I'll write out 1 or 2 sentences about the chapter that I want and like what might possibly happen in it. And then I'll tear that off and I'll write the next chapter.
So if I'm looking for specific like scenes or dialogue, I'll go to like Pinterest to look up like dialogue starters to get more ideas flowing through my mind. I'll listen to specific genres of music.
Journaling is really useful, notebooks and whatnot. I find mind maps are a really good way to get ideas out.
I don't really have a traditional method. I have the more just sit down and write.
You know, I kind of am a mix between pantsing and plotting. So pantsing is not doing any of the plotting aspects, just writing willy-nilly. And then plotting is actually lining it up.
Okay, I've got some ideas written out here, but I need somebody that the story is about. A character, or 2, maybe 3?
The character needs to be human, unless obviously they are not human.
I think flaws are definitely needed for them, to make them feel human.
It's so important for characters to be so developed and like have their personality, because they need to like have their own specific morals and reasons that they'll do things within the story that'll just attain specifically to that character.
What makes your character stand out in a crowd?
One vital question, and that vital question is, what does your character want more than anything else in the whole world, and how can you prevent them from getting it? Which is the whole entire concept of conflict.
Alright, let's make some characters. Well, first, they need a body, and maybe some clothes, and something that makes them special. And I guess they need some friends. But now, all these characters need are some names.
A lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to come up with the perfect name. So often when young writers come up to me and ask me, how can they keep writing without naming the character? I just tell them to insert a random word like baseball bat for this character, so that later on they can go back and when they find a character or a name that properly fits this character, they can insert that name every time they see baseball bat.
I will find words and I'll write them backwards.
Just go into Google baby name websites. I feel like a lot of people do this.
So, after a bit of research, I came up with some names. We've got Jay, which means blue. We have Amber, which means orange. And we have Deus. Now, his name was kind of weird. I started by looking at some Greek mythology names, and then found this hero Odysseus. And he seemed pretty cool, so I just kind of mixed it up a little bit. But I think we're missing something else.
You have your protagonist, your antagonist, the kind of supporting characters, and then you have like the in-between characters.
So there's the alignment chart that has the true neutral and the lawful evil, etc. There's like 9 of them, right?
So you have your protagonist, who is typically mostly good. Then you have the antagonist, the person who opposes them, who's typically mostly bad.
You have the best friend, because we all need a bestie.
Alright, we have our heroes, but I need a villain. I've got the perfect character. Meet Tyrant King Casimir, and his noble henchman, French Fry. Yeah, I don't got a name yet. It's a work in progress. But now we have our characters. We just need a place where the story takes place.
So a setting can go into 3 folds of things. You have the time, the place, and the environment.
I like to sort of start with the assumption that my readers know what like a suburban town looks like, and distinguish what makes my setting different from suburban America.
What the surroundings look like what kind of climate they're in, if there are any buildings, ruins, castles, trees, like nature, stuff like that.
You don't want to spend pages and pages of detail of surrounding if it's not important.
So, our characters arrive in this new world that's completely different from anything that they've ever seen. It's got 2 districts, the Wastelands and the Capital. Now, the Wastelands is pretty much how it sounds. It's dry, desolate, boring, with a couple of mutant rats thrown in. The Capital, on the other hand, is pretty much like our big cities, except it's more technologically advanced, except for the guns. The guns are normal. Gunpowder, bullets, all that. Now, the Capital is also home to King Casimir and the Academy. The Academy is the most prestigious school, and it's only available by invitation. Now, we have our characters and we have our setting. Now, we just need a story. Now, I don't live under a rock. I've been through grade 9 English. I know a bit about plot structure, but let's get a refresher.
A typical plot, it's kind of like that whole mountain thing that they would teach you in elementary school. So you would start at the bottom with the introduction, then you'd go to the first major point of conflict, and then they would kind of fail down here, and then they would head to the major climax and head to the peak of the mountain before resolving it and going back down. So another one that I like to picture is actually so you're on one side of a cliff over here, and then there's a huge valley, and then the other side of the cliff is where your main character is trying to get to. And so this is kind of the typical hero's journey of like everything is fine and then everything is not fine because they're hitting that main climax. There's a bunch of tension and then they come out at the top, and that's usually the resolution of the story.
One thing that I do also like to do is I'll write out what is happening, like the main plot point, and I'll write whether they pass, fail, or it's just a neutral, nothing really happens.
So I really appreciate books that like have a very diverse cast, characters that are part of the LGBTQ plus community, just because we need to hear so many different voices within literature that it's so important to get them in there as long as they're also relevant to the plot.
So, I've got the plot. Jay and Deus arrive in this new world, and immediately they get separated. Deus gets taken off to the academy, but he doesn't know it yet. And Jay gets taken to this work camp in the Wastelands. He meets Amber there, and the two of them discover these weird blue and orange amulets. Decide to keep them. They'll come in later. So the next day, French Fry comes to take Jay and Amber and a couple of other kids to the academy. You know, they're just chilling, learning how to be child soldiers and all that, until Jay and his new squad learn of this prophecy involving him, Amber, and the new amulets. The group of them decide to leave, escape the academy, and go to this rebellion base, the rebellion that's fighting against King Casimir. Then, the rebellion helps them take back the academy and free all the kids from this really weird child soldier school. That's my plot. There's gonna be more to it. I haven't written it all yet, but it's there. It's a start. Now, before I go, I've got some advice from these awesome writers who helped me along my journey.
Try to get opinions from friends.
Finding someone to proofread and bounce ideas off is good.
I think the biggest resource is actually the community itself. So like joining the different groups, following Book Talk, following any of the Bookstagram book communities. Also read
the genre you love, read books you love, read books by authors you love.
Read books that you love.
Many authors say that if you don't have time to read, you don't have time to create a well thought out book.
Because as you're reading, you're absorbing everything that author is pouring into that book. So their sentence structure, their paragraph structure, their chapter structure, you're seeing how that character development is growing throughout that story. So reading is actually a huge tool for writers because it breaks you out of your own little world and it helps you think about your own writing and what you need to add and what you need to change.
But I would say connect with as many authors as possible. Do like interviews of them, see what they know, figure out where they started, and maybe they'll help you get where you're going.
And some advice from me. There's nothing stopping you from writing except yourself. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be great, it's not going to turn out good the first try. That's why it's a first draft. Now, go do it. Go write.